Hey guys, how's it going? It's Bethany, or Movie Buff Beth, and I'm back again with a new video. I'm going to be doing something very different than what I've done before on the channel today. I'm going to be talking about something that's very near and dear to my heart, which is mental health and mental illness, and how I think it kind of relates to movies and collecting and all of those things, you know, of course in my own personal opinion. And hopefully you guys can find something to relate to in this video, because it's just a subject matter that, although we are making improvements, it's just not talked about enough, and it's something that everyone can relate to. So hopefully you guys find something in this video for you. It's going to be a lot more personal and vulnerable than I've been on the channel. Obviously I have addressed some personal things about our life before, but this one's going to be a little bit more vulnerable than I've been. And I kind of gauged some interest on my Instagram yesterday, and I received a lot of responses of people interested in this subject matter, in mental health and how it relates to movie watching and how movies have helped me. And I received lots of messages and lots of support. So thank you to everyone that reached out to me and expressed their interest in this video, because it gave me that extra little push to do this. So thank you for that. And I hope that you do gain something out of this video and you do enjoy it. I'm going to go ahead and preface this by saying that I am by no means an expert or a professional in the mental health field. If I do mention that I went to school for psychology, it's only to show you the level of interest that I have in it, not to like toot my own horn and sound like I am some expert or have lots of knowledge about it, because I don't. I only have a bachelor's degree. I still have a lot to learn. All of this is my own personal opinion, as well as my personal experience. So of course, you know, your experience is going to be different than mine, and you know, all of that. I did just want to mention that from the get-go, that you guys don't think that I'm some sort of expert or professional. If for any reason you thought that, I'm not. This is just my personal experience and just some things and some thoughts that I wanted to share with you guys. So why am I making this video? Well, for one, this has been on my mind a lot lately, and I will get into this more in the video, but I definitely struggle with mental illness myself. And obviously I spend much of my time watching movies. So there is a correlation there, at least in my life. I love movies, and I am passionate about the mental health field. I work in a psychiatric unit at a hospital, so day in and day out I'm dealing with people that are struggling with their mental health. And you know, the way that I spend my time is either watching movies or, you know, at the hospital in the psychiatric unit. So obviously two things that are important to me and relevant to my life. I also feel like film and mental health are very closely related. I fell in love with movies the same way that I fell in love with psychology. I love walking in someone else's shoes and seeing what it's like to be them and get into their psyche. And you know, I've often mentioned that I love character studies on the channel, and that's because I really am passionate about learning about others and learning about how they interact with the world. And in fact, I went to college initially for cinema production. For the first 2 years or so of my college education, I was a cinema production major. And you know, a lot of things in life kind of led to me changing my major, one of which was a great amount of social anxiety, but I'll go into that more later. But yeah, I started out college as a cinema production major and eventually changed to behavioral science with an emphasis in psychology. So obviously I love both of these things, and again, I fell in love with both of these fields in a very similar way, just in a pure interest and curiosity to learn more about the human experience and get in other people's minds and get into their psyche. And I think that film is a really good outlet for that. Even if you're not really into psychology, I think everyone is into learning more about the human experience and getting to know other people better. And I definitely feel like movies help you to do this. They help you to delve into someone's psyche on a meaningful level. And that could be with the characters in the film, but that could also be with the filmmaker. You learn a lot about a filmmaker and the choices that they make in their films and the characters that they write. You learn a lot not only about these fictional characters, but you learn a lot about the filmmaker and the writer and the producer and everyone involved, which I think is just really endlessly interesting, and that's one of the reasons that I love film. And also one of the reasons that I love psychology is you get to really delve into the human experience and learn about people and learn about the brain and why people make the decisions they do, and yeah, all of that. I just love film, and I also love psychology. So that's one of the reasons that I'm making this video, because I'm passionate about these two things, and I feel like they're very closely related. And beyond all of that, like I mentioned, I do struggle with mental illness myself, and I think that this is something that everyone can relate to. I'm not saying that everyone has a mental illness, but everybody experiences it in one facet or another. Whether you have a mental illness yourself or you have a loved one that has a mental illness, it's very close to home for pretty much everyone. I don't know that I've ever met anyone that truly hasn't experienced mental illness in one way or another. So I feel like this is a relevant video and one that could get through to a lot of people. At least that's my hope. And again, although we are moving in a good direction in our society as far as talking about mental health and mental illness and suicidality and all of these things, I still feel like there's a lot of work that needs to be done. It's still a difficult thing to talk about. Oftentimes you'll find people a lot more comfortable with talking about their physical health than they are talking about their mental health. Someone may openly express to you that they have diabetes or they have cancer and this is how they're treating it and whatnot. But it's a lot more rare that you'll hear someone say, I have anxiety, or I have depression, or I have schizophrenia, and this is how I'm dealing with it, and this is how I'm treating it. It's just not talked about nearly as much. And again, we are moving in a good direction, but I still feel like there's a stigma surrounding it, and there just shouldn't be. And I mean, I know that's easy to say. I, for one, am not very open about my own mental illness, which is ironic because I really am an advocate for people, coming forward and asking for help and just talking about how they're feeling and things. And I really am an advocate for that, but I myself struggle with doing that. So, it's obviously easier said than done. But one of my hopes by making this video is that I open a conversation. That's one of my hopes in making this video. And then also I want to discuss, at least briefly, a little bit about how the media depicts mental illness. Obviously, we all have seen many movies over the years that depict mental illness in one way or another, and it's not always the greatest. Sometimes it's pretty well done, but it's not always the greatest. It's sometimes villainized and depicted in a very unhealthy way, and I kind of wanted to discuss that again maybe a little more briefly than some of the other things I'm going to talk about, but I feel like that's an interesting subject to broach as well. So that's why I'm making this video. Hopefully you guys do get some enjoyment or some value out of this video. So let's talk a little bit more about me. Like I said, I went to college initially for cinema production. I've always loved movies, and I really especially fell in love with movies kind of the last few years of high school. Up until then, I had really been planning on going to college for music. In high school, I played several instruments. I wasn't great. I was pretty good, but I wasn't great. But I thought, I'll just go to college for music. Why not? That's what I'm good at. And then I kind of realized that wasn't a career path I wanted to go down. And so I started looking around at some other things that I might be interested in. And psychology was something that I was always interested in, but unfortunately there weren't a lot of opportunities to learn about it in my high school. I had 4 music classes, but 1 psychology class in all of high school. So it wasn't something I was super exposed to, but I was always interested in it. But again, I fell in love with movies near the end of high school, even more than I had been before. So I decided, well, I'll just go ahead and go to school for film. Why not? And some things worked out, and I got into a college that had a film program, and I felt like it was the right decision. It was the right call. So for about the first year and a half or 2 of college, I did cinema production, and I really did enjoy it. I really loved learning about movies constantly. I mean, I got a lot of my general education out of the way in high school, so I pretty much just dove right into learning about movies, and it was really fun. Sometimes it was difficult because it started to feel a little bit like a chore, and I've always just watched movies for fun. But for the most part, I really, really did enjoy it. And as I started to get a little further on into my education, you really had to start putting yourself out there in a way that I wasn't very good at. And through all of this, I was developing a pretty good level of social anxiety. I don't really know what that stemmed from because I've always been a really social person. And in high school, I had lots of friends and had, little trouble putting myself out there. But, college is just a whole new realm, a whole new experience, and it's difficult to put yourself out there in such a different environment. And again, this major asked a lot of things of me that I was not good at. Like putting myself out there and starting to produce short films and just having that level of self-confidence to say, let me do this in your movie and let me do this. And I don't know, it became very overwhelming, and it's hard to encapsulate everything that happened, but I started to get really depressed. I think that it was because I was starting to struggle in school, and that was not something I ever experienced before. I had always been really good at school. I got straight A's in high school, and I did really well in most everything. But as I started to get into some more of these advanced film classes, I started to struggle. And that led me to feeling very depressed and being very hard on myself. And also had a lot of personal things going on. I got married very young. I got married when I was a sophomore in college. I was 19, almost 20, but I was 19. And that's a lot too. That's a lot to deal with. I love Andrew to bits, but we were too young when we got married, to say the least. And that was very stressful as well. And I started to just get really depressed, really anxious, and started to not do well. So I made the decision to stop going to school for a little bit, take a little bit of a sabbatical. And that was hard because, like I said, I was always really good at school, and I kind of had my whole life laid out in front of me, and it wasn't going exactly as planned, and I didn't love that. But I took some time off school, spent some time with family, focused on myself. Also, another side note is throughout college, I had tried to work while going to school. It was very difficult for me because I had very little free time. I was hardly seeing Andrew, and it was very difficult on my mental health. And I didn't do well at work either, and that was also difficult for me. So I just took the time off that I needed to regroup and to think and to spend time with family and just try and sort out my own stuff. And it was good for me. It was really good. And I won't go into all of that, but somewhere around there, I decided I'm going to change my major because I'm not doing great. Even though I really do enjoy it, I'm not doing great. And, something that had always been on the back of my mind was psychology. And obviously that was something I could study at my school. So I decided to go back through psychology. And I'm really glad that I did. I didn't enjoy my studies quite as much as I enjoyed, just sitting around watching movies and learning about movies. But I did really find my place in the psychology major. And another benefit was I was able to do most of that schooling online. Which again, social anxiety was becoming very difficult. And also depression was hard because sometimes it's hard to get out of bed and it's hard to get ready and it's hard to leave the house. And so online schooling was a little bit easier for me to accomplish at the time. And now I can't even think about going back to school in person, so I'm trying to find a graduate school online, but that's a whole other thing. So yeah, the other thing about psychology is I was able to complete 85% of my degree online, and that was really cool. And we had also moved away from the city where I went to college, so that made it a lot easier on me, of course, to do my schooling online. And I finally finished my schooling in 2018, and before all of that, I got a job in a psychiatric unit, which was really exciting for me because it's what I wanted to do. I wanted to work in the mental health field, and I got a job even before I graduated college in the mental health field, so I was really excited about that. And it gave me a lot of really good work experience, gave me a lot of confidence, and really improved my overall mental health to have that job. And I finished my degree again in 2018, and I continued to work at that first job for a while, or that first mental health job for a while. And then Andrew and I decided we wanted to move, and we moved here to Las Vegas, and I started my job here. So that's all about me and my schooling. So yeah, I do work in a psychiatric unit at a hospital, which sounds like it would be a really interesting job, but sometimes it isn't. That's a whole other thing about my job. I don't love it, but I am grateful that I have a job, and I'm grateful that I'm working in something that's somewhat related to what I eventually want to do. Now let's go in a little bit more into my own struggle with mental illness. Like I said, it's hard to look back at all of that and really, pinpoint what was going on with me. But at the same time, looking back, it's very easy to see that I was struggling and I was in denial of that. I guess I'll talk about my first movie that I'm going to talk about in this video. At the time, I didn't understand why I loved it so much, but looking back at it now, I fully understand. And I've talked about this briefly on the channel before. And the movie I'm talking about is The Perks of Being a Wallflower. So this came out in 2012. So I believe I was a senior when I saw this, at the beginning of my senior year. And like I said, I was really starting to fall in love with movies towards the end of high school. And this is one of the reasons why. I saw this movie, and for those of you that haven't seen it, our main character, Charlie, he very clearly is depressed and is dealing with a lot of anxiety and a lot of loneliness, and he's working through a lot of trauma. And he meets his two friends here, played by Emma Watson and Ezra Miller, and they kind of help pull him out of this. And this was the first movie that I saw that really hit home for me, I guess. Again, I was very much in denial that I could possibly be depressed or anxious, especially in high school, because who wants to admit something like that when they're a teenager? And I have a history of mental illness in my family, and I still was in denial. But I saw this movie and it changed my life, because even though I couldn't quantify or put into words why it meant so much to me at the time, looking back now, I realize it's because I felt seen. I felt like I had representation in a film. Some things that I had experienced and some things that I'd been feeling were encapsulated in the character Charlie. And again, I don't think I could have verbalized that back then, but I fell in love with this movie and it changed the trajectory of everything. I think once I saw this film, I knew that filmmaking was going to be important in my life in one way or another. And even though I didn't finish school for film is obviously still incredibly important to my life. And so I owed that all to seeing Perks of Being a Wallflower. And again, I just felt represented and I felt seen and I felt heard in this character. Obviously there's differences in our lives and things that we've been through, but it was really great to see a story on the screen that represented something that was important to me. And I'm sure that you guys all have a movie that's like that for you, where there's just a character in there that, although there are still differences, there's a lot of you in that character. And there's a great power in storytelling for that reason. Because again, it's just so important to feel seen and to feel heard and to have that representation in a movie, because you know that you're not alone. You know that there's other people out there that have experienced the things that you've experienced, and you're not broken for feeling the way that you do. So anyways, this film really changed my life, because from a filmmaking perspective and a storytelling perspective, I was like, wow, film can be so meaningful. It can make you feel all of these amazing complex emotions for fictional characters, which is incredible. And also from a personal perspective, I can find catharsis in film. I can find relief and representation in what I see in film. So for those two reasons, from a filmmaking perspective and a storytelling perspective and a personal perspective, this film changed my life. It definitely did. I wouldn't be where I am now. I wouldn't be as mentally sound as I am now had I not ever seen The Perks of Being a Wallflower. I don't know. It changed my life. It's hard to put into words, but it did. So yeah, seeing The Perks of Being a Wallflower really changed the trajectory of my life. Sorry, that was really hard to say. Yeah, Perks of Being a Wallflower, this film means the world to me. So yeah, let's go into that. How can movies help you mental health wise? Well, like I said, the catharsis that is found in film is incredible. Sometimes you don't have a support system that understands what you're going through, or sometimes you don't have a person that you can look to that has a similar experience to you. And so finding that catharsis in film is so important. And obviously it was very meaningful to me. And beyond that, movies are a great distraction. If nothing else, movies are an escape. When life is super, super overwhelming and I throw on a movie that I love that I know will create this emotion and this feeling in me, I feel comforted. And in fact, I have a video coming out pretty soon, maybe next week, where I'm going to talk about all my favorite comfort films and feel-good movies, because movies have that power. They have that power to change your mood, at least, you know, for the 2 hours that you're watching it. And if it's a really great film, maybe that feeling will transcend just the viewing experience and it will stick with you. And I think that there's a lot of movies that have the ability to do that. So yeah, it's an escape. It provides catharsis. It's a good distraction. I mean, sometimes you just gotta throw in like a dumb comedy or like a superhero movie and just pretend that real life isn't happening, and that's fine. That's great. Like I mentioned before, the shared experience of knowing that there's other people out there that know what you're going through and what you're feeling is empowering. Also, the shared experience of talking about movies has been really meaningful to me. Ever since I created my Instagram page in, I don't know, like 2013. I mean, I always had an Instagram page, you know, in high school, whatever. I posted personal things, but when I finally started posting about movies, I found a community of people that loved movies as much as me, because yeah, I haven't met a ton of people in real life that love movies as much as I do. So finding this community was really meaningful to me, and it's been really good. And having people that I can talk to, I mean, I have people that I talk to on a daily basis that I met through Instagram or now YouTube or Twitter or, you know, all these different platforms. I have people that I talk to on a daily basis now. And it's not just about movies anymore. It's about life and what's going on, you know, because you come to care about these people and they become your real friends, and it's a cool experience and I love it. I love all of those things about movies, and I love talking about movies after you see them. Some of the big bonding moments for my husband and I have been over movies. I mean, we basically met because we both love movies. We met online, and we met on a dating website, and I remember initially being drawn to his profile because he talked about how much he loved movies. So yeah, I mean, and like going to Sundance Film Festival with him, one of my favorite memories. And then there was a point where we were going to like tons of early screenings of film, and we usually had to drive about an hour to go to those. And I remember just like the long drive home afterwards, just, you know, dissecting the film and talking about it. Like, just, I love it. There's a real shared experience and shared enjoyment in watching movies that I love. So my first question to you guys is, how do movies help you mental health wise? Do they provide comfort to you? Have they helped you find catharsis? You know, what have they done for you? And then also, what are your favorite things about watching movies? Do you enjoy this shared experience of watching film? Do you enjoy talking about film with people? Please let me know, because I'd love to start a conversation about this, because I think that movies can just be so helpful to your mental health. And it's just beautiful to me. I'm so passionate about the power of film and what it can do for you. It's beautiful. Now, my next question to you is, movies that depict mental health, do they ever do it well? I think that this has been a topic of discussion for quite a while, because obviously mental health is something that we have not always had a large understanding of. Psychology, in comparison to some of the other sciences, is a relatively new science. And just like other scientific fields, we're learning more and more about it every day. And also, the media is a huge impact on how the general public thinks about mental illness and about mental health as a whole. So do movies address mental health well? Let me know what you think about that. And let me know what some movies are that you think do it well. And then also, on that same hand, what are some movies that don't? What are some movies that depict mental health in a damaging way? Because there definitely are some out there. For the sake of this video, I'm going to talk about a couple movies that I think do it well, that depict mental health in a pretty, either a really healthy way or a very realistic way. So I picked out two films here. First one I'm going to talk about is, it's kind of a funny story. This film stars Keira Gilchrist, Emma Roberts, and Zach Galifianakis. And before you think, oh, it's going to be a really dumb movie with Zach Galifianakis, hear me out. I saw this movie years ago, before I ever worked in a psych unit, when I was studying psychology. And I will say, one thing about me now that I work in a psych unit is, anytime there is a psych unit in a movie, I tend to pick it apart. In fact, Andrew has told me that I need to just shut up if there is like a psych ward or psych unit in a movie, because I will pick it apart and say, you know, no, they couldn't have that, that's a ligature risk, blah blah blah, I will ruin the movie. At least that's what Andrew's told me. But I saw this before I had ever worked in a psych unit, so I'll say that. But I feel like this film, it follows a character named Craig. He's a teenager who is very depressed and one night decides that he wants to kill himself. And so I think he goes to like a bridge and he's gonna jump off, and then something takes over and he decides to go to the hospital and check himself into a psych unit. And he also meets a few other characters, you know, played by Emma Roberts and Zach Galifianakis, who are also in this psych unit. And I feel like this film deals with teenage depression in a very natural and realistic way. And it addresses suicidality and some really deep things. There are definitely lighthearted moments in this film, but they're at all the right times. When it needs to be serious, it's serious. And it addressed it in a very realistic and healthy way. You really get the character of Craig and you really feel for him. And it's just a very good depiction of what it's like to feel depressed and feel suicidal. I will say, now that I've watched it again since working in a psych unit, it's a pretty realistic depiction of what it's like in a psych unit. Obviously there's not going to be a perfect film that covers this, but I feel like this does a pretty good job. Probably one of the best films I've seen set in a psych environment that I haven't totally picked apart. So yeah, it's kind of a funny story. When I initially saw this film, I was definitely very depressed, and it was very cathartic for me to watch, and I really definitely did enjoy it. So it's kind of a funny story. It's a great film addressing depression and suicidality, and it does it in a very natural and realistic way, and I really do enjoy it. Now, the next movie I'm going to talk about is Silver Linings Playbook. Now, when I first saw this film, back when it came out, which was like 2013 or so, I thought it was kind of over the top. I thought that the performances were a little wild for me. But I will say, now that I have experienced Mania firsthand, these are pretty rock solid performances from these two. Like, they are very realistic performances of what it's like to have bipolar disorder and to be in the manic side of that. And although it doesn't get everything right, I feel like this is a pretty well done film. And you know, it's rare that you're gonna get a perfect film about, you know, bipolar disorder or about mental illness, but I feel like this is pretty close. This is a pretty good depiction, and maybe you guys will disagree with me, but I mean, definitely let me know if you disagree, but I feel like they gave pretty realistic performances for what it's like to go through that. And also, everyone's experience with mental illness is different, and it's individual to who you are, so, you know, not one experience is gonna speak for everyone's experience as well, so that's something important to note. But yeah, I do enjoy this one. One thing I will say is they pronounce trazodone really weirdly, which is funny.
How about trazodone?
Trazodone.
Silver Linings Playbook, I feel like pretty good performances and pretty realistic as well. So yeah, please let me know in the comments below some of your favorite films that address mental health, some that you think do it really well, and if there are some that you think just don't do it very well. And if you disagree with the films that I picked, let me know about that as well, because I'd love to start that conversation. Now, I've got two more movies to talk about in this video. One of them does at least briefly address mental health, and one of them doesn't at all, but they've been two very impactful films in my life, and so I'll just go ahead and go into those. First one is Garden State. Obviously, Zach Braff's character, Andrew, is very depressed in this film, and you know, it shows him like going to a therapist and getting medication and things. But that's not really the main point of this film. I do remember watching this film when I was really struggling. I was having a very, very hard time. It wasn't the first time I saw this, but it was one of the other times. And although it's not like a totally happy-go-lucky film, this film gave me hope when I really, really needed it. I won't go into too much detail about that, but this movie definitely saved my life, and I love it. It's so good. If you guys have never seen Garden State, watch it, because I just love the characters in this. I feel like they're very real, and again, just very cathartic to watch. I love Garden State, so I just had to mention that one. And then this film has saved my life literally on multiple occasions. This is my #1 comfort film. I think we all have that one movie where, like, when life just totally goes to shit, you have to watch it. And I've gone through some shit with this movie. Anytime I'm feeling really low, I go to this one, and it never fails to cheer me up. And that's Bridesmaids. has absolutely nothing to do with mental health, but it's hilarious. It makes me laugh. It's surprisingly heartfelt. You really feel for Annie and you're just rooting for her. You want things to go right in her life. That's just a hilarious movie. Even though I've seen it probably well above 10 times, I just absolutely love this film. And now a special memory for it. I saw it in theaters with my sister Sarah, who passed away last year. And yeah, so now it means even more to me than it did before. So yeah, Bridesmaids. I love this movie. Let me know in the comments below what your #1 comfort movie is, because yeah, Bridesmaids, I'm pretty sure that will always be mine. And it's definitely saved my life on multiple occasions. And there's probably several more movies that I could talk about when it comes to that, but I'll leave it to those two, Garden State and Bridesmaids, and Perks of Being a Wallflower as well. Just, wow, changed my life. So the last thing I'm gonna talk about, this maybe is the most vulnerable part. I don't know, maybe some of this other stuff has been more vulnerable. But one thing I've really been struggling with lately is anxiety. I still have depression here and there, but I feel like I've built a lot of really good coping skills, and I'm at a place in my life where I'm not constantly depressed like I've been in the past, and I'm very happy about that. But anxiety has been a struggle for me the last couple years, like really bad, to the point that unless I'm driving or something that really requires my full attention, I have an incredibly hard time focusing. I'm constantly thinking of things I need to write down. And also this kind of goes into OCD as well, because I've always struggled with OCD, and especially in the last couple of years. But I think OCD and anxiety, at least in my opinion, are pretty closely related. Where was I? I don't know. Either way, I'm always thinking of things that I need to write down. I'm constantly making lists. If you were to look in my phone, in like my notes, you would think I was insane, which is not a word that I like very much, but you would think I was, because I'm just constantly writing things down. Partially because I feel like my memory is not as good as it used to be. I'm only 26, but I feel like an old lady sometimes, and so I'm always writing things down because I'm afraid I'm going to forget them. And I just have racing thoughts constantly. Even when there's nothing to be worried about, I dig something up to worry about. And I don't know what has caused that to be so bad lately. I've always had anxiety, definitely, but it's just gotten so much worse in the last couple of years. And I cannot even pinpoint why. And this is one of the reasons I wanted to sit down and do this video, because I wanted to reach out to you guys and say that I'm struggling and I'm having a hard time. And obviously watching film is something that requires a lot of focus and attention and concentration. And so I've had a hard time watching movies lately, which really sucks because it's my favorite thing to do, but I just cannot focus. I cannot turn my brain off sometimes. I cannot quiet my mind. And I just wanted to know if anyone else experiences this, and if they have any advice for me or for anyone else that may be struggling with anxiety or struggling with focus, because it sucks. And I've tried to find ways to focus better, and it's hard, especially in this day and age where we have a cell phone and we could constantly be looking stuff up and constantly doing things and constantly multitasking. I have a very hard time just doing one task, a very hard time. I should have brought it in here, but I have this little like fidget thing now that I try to hold while I watch movies, and I like click buttons and I move a joystick and I do all these things because I cannot just focus. It definitely comes down to just constantly being worried about forgetting things and constantly feeling like I need to make lists and constantly, I don't know. It's a struggle and it's hard, and I hate that it affects my favorite thing to do, which is watching movies. And I've just wondered if you guys deal with that at all, because it's hard. Going full circle, I think that it's important to talk about the things that you're struggling with, because if you push them aside and you don't think about them and you try to avoid them and brush them off, more often than not they get worse. And that's why I'm coming to you guys, the film community, to talk about it, because I'm struggling, and that's okay. I think it's okay to admit that you're struggling and that you need help and that you could do better. I think we all can. And that brings me to my last point, and I really do mean this. If you are struggling and you need someone to turn to, come to me, because I'm here and I know what it's like to be in a place in your life where you feel like you have nowhere else to turn. And even if we've never talked before, even if we talk every day and we never talk about that kind of stuff, whatever, come to me. Talk to me about whatever is on your mind, because you need someone to turn to. And if you don't come to me, go to someone else that you trust. Call a hotline. Do whatever you need to do. Come to me and talk to me about anything, any sort of struggle or anything. Even if you're just having an awesome day, come to me, because I'm here and I love to talk to people and I love to get to know people. And if you just want to talk to me about movies, that's great too. My DMs are always open. And also I invite you guys to comment if you are comfortable doing so. Comment and share your experience. Let other people see that they're not alone. Let other people see that there's other people out there that know what they're going through, because that's so validating and so empowering. You know, just the same way that film does this for us. We could do that for each other. We could say, hey, I had this time when it was really rough. And it does get better. It does get better. There's a point in my life where I did not think that I would ever graduate college. I didn't think that I would live to see another day, honestly, at certain points in my life. But here I am, and here you are. And it's awesome. We're here. I just want to say I appreciate all of you and the engagement that we have here on YouTube. I know, like, a lot of the times it's silly and it's surface level, and that's cool. It's fun to talk about our hobbies and things that we like to do, but we can talk about other things too. And I think that's awesome. And I think we should open the conversation about mental health. Let's remove the stigma. Let's talk about it. If you're struggling, admit it. If you're having a great day, talk about it. I will get off my soapbox now, but thank you guys so much for listening. It means the world. And again, I love talking movies with you guys. I love sharing with you guys, and I'm hopeful that you guys will enjoy this video and that we could start a conversation and make this community even more meaningful than it may have been before. And maybe it won't do any of those things, but either way, I enjoyed talking with you guys and opening up with you guys and being a little bit more vulnerable and personal than I ever have been on the channel. And maybe I'll do something like this in the future, I don't know. But yeah, please answer my questions. Start the conversation. Let's talk, guys. Let's talk about movies that address mental health. Do they do it well ever? Do they ever have like a perfect depiction of mental illness? What's your number one comfort movie? Please answer all these questions in the comments below. I would love to hear it. Thank you guys so much for watching. Again, it means the world. I hope you guys have a wonderful day, and I will see you on the next one.